It's time for our final chat before the Buffalo Bills face the Pittsburgh Steelers in the opening round of the playoffs. And we got a lot to get to here today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Well, folks, this will be the last time that we speak before the Bills face the Steelers in the super wild card round of the playoffs. And I know there's a lot of dynamics in this game, including some thought that it could be moved. And I'm recording this game. When I say moved, I mean moved in terms of perhaps played on Monday instead of Sunday, given the weather dynamics and the state of emergency that the governor has declared and all the dynamics that exist with that. And so I'm recording this on Friday evening. And so as of now, all of the momentum, according to the Bills, is for this game to be played Sunday at 1 p.m. And so that's my understanding as of this recording. But not a whole lot's going to change in terms of the way I perceive this game if it's played on Sunday at 1 o'clock or if it's moved to Monday. So we're going to do the things that we do here in our last chat. I'm going to give you my final thoughts. We're going to talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about some significant injuries this week for the Bills. And then, of course, I'll close it out with my prediction. Real quick, though, there's been some cool awards that the Buffalo Bills have received over the last week. Taron Johnson was named second-team All-Pro slot corner. For the first time in his career, he's earned those honors. And it's the fifth straight year that a Bills defensive player has been named to the All-Pro team. In 19 and 20, it was Trey White. In 21, it was Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. And then in 22, it was Matt Milano. 23, we have Taron Johnson. So awesome to see him get that recognition. Certainly an underrated player on the Buffalo Bills, and he deserves this, right? He's one of the best slot corners in all of football. He's had a great season, does a lot for the team, and I'm excited for him to get those honors. Now, Taron Johnson is the only Bill that received first or second team All-Pro honors. Nobody else. There's others that received votes, but nobody else made either the first or second All-Pro team. Sam Martin, the Bills punter, was named the AFC Special Teams Player of the Month, which is pretty cool. It's the first time ever for Sam Martin and the first Bills punter since Brian Moorman in November 2006. So it's been a while since the Bills punter has earned these honors, but Sam Martin had one heck of a month. Check out these numbers. During the month, he led the AFC in percentage of punts inside the 20, percentage of punts inside the 10, and percentage of punts inside the 5. He had one heck of a month. And this is a cool stat as well. In terms of average field position for the opposition on punts, it was the 19.1 yard line, which is number one in the AFC. So the 19.1 yard line is the average starting field position after a Sam Martin punt, best in the AFC. So cool to see him get those honors, but we're not done. Deontay Hardy was named AFC Special Teams Player of the Week for the first time in his career. The second Bill to get those honors this season, Reggie Gilliam, of course, back in Week 11 for that awesome opening kick coverage where he forced the fumble and set the Bills up for some points there early against the Jets. But, of course, Deontay Hardy, 96-yard punt return in the fourth quarter to tie the game at 14 against Miami, was the longest punt return in the history of the Buffalo Bills and the longest in the NFL since since December of 2021. So some cool honors for the Bills. Taron Johnson, second team All-Pro slot corner. Sam Martin, AFC Special Teams Player of the Month. Deontay Hardy, AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Now, we've got some injury stuff to get into, and we'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble in the next segment about the extent of the injuries and, more about the questionable players and that type of stuff. But I want to get into the impact of the injuries because we've got a couple of players ruled out in wide receiver Gabe Davis and safety Taylor Rapp, but a couple of players that I don't feel good about being available for Sunday in Rasul Douglas and Tyrel Dodson. And so I want to kind of talk about the domino effect of those injuries. And we'll, of course, start with the players that we know are not going to play, one of those being Gabe Davis. And, you know, Gabe is a player who I don't love. You know that. You've listened to me talk about Gabe Davis. I'm not overly fond of his skill set, but I certainly do understand his role as a high-volume player in the offense. I understand the rub routes that he runs, the clear-out routes that he runs, the blocking that he does. I also have a lot of confidence that Trent Sherfield can do the same thing. I think he can come in and block and run rub routes and run clear-out routes just like Gabe Davis. And so I think the Bills are probably going to be okay there. I think the potential benefit of Gabe being out is that it means more opportunity potentially for Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid, very efficient targets that Josh Allen likes to throw the football to, not to mention you still have Stefon Diggs and Dawson Knox in your running back. So I think you're going to be okay there, but obviously an adjustment because of the volume of snaps that Gabe Davis has played this season and for multiple seasons for the Buffalo Bills. But the contingency there is Trent Sherfield. It'll be interesting to see if they promote somebody from the practice squad, whether that's Andy Isabella, who they've promoted one time this year, but also if they want a size dynamic, right? Could that be a Tyrell Shavers opportunity to come in if they want a bigger bodied guy to step in and maybe block a little bit? So it'll be interesting to see if they call up anybody, but I think you can kind of understand that Trent Sherfield's the swap, and I could see the Bills potentially going thin at wide receiver for this game and maybe heavier at running back, you know, dress all four between Leonard Fournette, Ty Johnson, Latavius Murray, and James Cook, and go light at wide receiver, given the dynamics of this game that are probably going to include a lot of wind, snow, cold, all of that. Taylor Rapp ruled out for this game. Cam Lewis, big spot for him. Taylor Rapp, the third safety for the Bills, a position that plays a fair amount given what they do in terms of on obvious passing situations. They pull out Tyrel Dodson, and then they put in Jordan Poyer at linebacker, and then they bring in Taylor Rapp to play safety. Well, now that Taylor Rapp role becomes Cam Lewis, who's obviously a very experienced player for the team. They've put him in from time to time. It's not an unfamiliar spot for him, but you know, the Taylor Rapp dynamic, of course, is him coming off of his best game of the season against Miami, where on the last two plays, he has a huge pass breakup on a vertical shot to Tyreek Hill, and then the game-sealing interception to clinch the division for the Buffalo Bills. So, of course, the timing here couldn't be worse, but I do have a fair level of confidence in Cam Lewis. I like the physicality that Cam has showcased throughout his career, and I think that's going to be the most important dynamic of that third safety role. I wonder if Saron Neal might get some run in some of those instances as well. If they think there could be some more of a run threat, they want a bigger body, they could lean into Saron Neal. Now, Rasul Douglas didn't practice all week long. We'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble about, you know, his chances for the game. I don't feel good about them. And the reality is, this is why you have Dane Jackson. This is why you brought him back, an experienced player, a really good spot starter. I know it's the playoffs, but I think that between George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, they're good receivers, but it feels manageable with Dane Jackson in there, who's a physical player, has ties to Pittsburgh. I think he can go in and do a sufficient job, and you let Rasul Douglas focus on getting back for the divisional round, assuming you win. You want guys to play and really push the limits in the playoffs, but you have Dane Jackson, and that's a veteran player that can fill in. I certainly think this would mean Kyer Elam would be active and, of course, be the third corner, but I think that's a manageable situation for this game, which leads us to Tyrel Dodson. He practiced in a limited capacity on Friday. Not sure what his status is for the game. I know he's got a shoulder deal, and obviously that's not great for cold weather and having to really be physical and play downhill. If he can't go, I'd assume it's Balin Spector next to Terrel Bernard. And it's interesting because the team signed A.J. Klein this week to the practice squad in the aftermath of this Tyrel Dodson injury. And the real X factor here is Dorian Williams, the Bills rookie out of Tulane. Fast, physical player, but boy, oh boy, does he make a lot of mistakes in terms of instincts and processing and consistently being where he's supposed to be. And you could see the Bills not really trusting him to play a lot. If you watch the Giants game or the Patriots game, they destroyed Dorian Williams. And I just don't know that he's ready to play defense quite yet. And I think that's why you bring in an A.J. Klein to give you a trusted veteran who's played off the street before. Remember the Thanksgiving game last year against Detroit? The guy was signed during the week and he started. I think he played every snap. So you could see something like that happening again with A.J. Klein, especially in this type of game where it's going to be physical downhill. He's not really going to be stressed in coverage. So I wonder what type of role he has. And the reality is I think the Bills are going to run some 3 linebacker stuff this week. We're expecting, obviously, a run-heavy game plan. And the Steelers have been running out of 13 personnel quite a bit lately. Over the last 2 games, they have 19 carries out of 13 personnel, which means 1 running back, 3 tight ends. You're going to want to match that with bigger people. So you're probably going to play some 3 linebacker sets, which really stresses your linebacker depth even more. So you're probably looking at, in those instances, of course, Terrel Bernard, Balin Spector, and then one of A.J. Klein or Dorian Williams. And look, the deal here is that the Steelers have run the ball very effectively, of course, over the last 10 weeks, but this 13 personnel has been a revelation for them. 19 carries, 138 yards. That's 7.3 yards per carry the last 2 weeks out of 13 personnel. They have 3 rushing touchdowns and a 74% success rate running out of 13 personnel. You better believe they're going to get that going. And they got some good blocking tight ends in Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and Connor Heyward, they're all good blockers. So that's going to be something they're going to tap into. You have to expect the Bills will play some 3 linebacker sets. Not having Tyrel Dodson is not great. I'll tell you what, between Gabe Davis, Taylor Rapp, Rasul Douglas, and Tyrel Dodson, if you told me I could have one healthy for the game, I might pick Tyrel Dodson just because of the downhill nature and the rushing attack and where Dodson really excels, right? This is kind of a tailor-made game for him, and you hate to potentially not have him. Again, he's not ruled out at this point in time. I just kind of don't feel good about it based on him only having 1 limited practice this week, it being a shoulder, it's outdoors, and you just signed A.J. Klein, right? I'm a little bit concerned about his availability, but we'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble here in just a moment to find out more regarding Tyrel Dodson and all of the injuries, so be sure to stick with me. But folks, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Well, you don't have to, because Gametime is here, and it's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They've got killer deals on last-minute tickets, all-in prices. They give you a view from your seat and a best price guarantee. I mean, simply put, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I love what this app offers. It's easy to navigate, and they also have flash deals, so you can log in and see what type of cool offers are available to you. They also send the tickets straight to your phone, so you don't have to dig through the emails to find them. They go right to your phone. So check it out. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on Twitter at bangedupbills. Joins us each week to talk about the injuries ahead of the upcoming Bills game. And unfortunately, we got some stuff to talk about here. A couple of players ruled out, a couple more that are questionable. We'll start with the questionable players, and the first one being Tyrel Dodson. What's interesting about him is he actually practiced this week. He was limited on Wednesday, limited on Friday, didn't practice on Thursday, has a shoulder deal, game day designation as questionable. I think it's an important player this week given the run dynamics of the Steelers. Any chances for Dodson?
He's probably the best bet to play out of the people who were dealing with significant injury this week. So by video, he hit Devon Chain and Greg Rousseau back in the second quarter, tried to finish them through the series and play, and he was having some issues, keep on getting the left shoulder hit. At first, I thought it was an AC joint sprain, and then you look at it a little bit more and how he hits over the top and kind of somersaults over. There's worry for there was a rotator cuff or even a labrum tear, which is going to cause weakness. It's going to cause pain, instability in the area. If he does play, he's going to wear shoulder harness like we've seen many other guys play. We saw DeMar Hamlin play with that earlier this year when he had his shoulder injury among other guys. And if he does play, I would expect him to be kind of look like Jordan Phillips last year, where he can't really engage the left arm too much. He would have issues wrapping up tackles, blocking. I question how effective he will be. We did see the Bills sign A.J. Klein this week back to the practice squad, who they can elevate. I would say give Dodson a week to rest, give that shoulder a chance to get a little bit stronger, and put Klein out there because he knows the defense and he's far healthier, especially with the poor weather that's expected.
Yeah, it could be a big Balin Spector spot as well. 3 linebacker sets, probably a real deal here. The tight end, the Steelers like to run 3 tight end sets, so it's probably going to be a number of those guys getting on the field. Unfortunately, maybe not Dodson being one of them. Let's get to Rasul Douglas here, cornerback, knee injury, didn't practice all week, does not have a designation of out, right? He's still questionable. Interesting kind of dynamics. You heard about a conversation between him and Dane Jackson last week where it sounds like Rasul said he could have went back into the game, but Dane was like, dude, I got you. If you're not 100%, I got you. He didn't practice all week. He's questionable. Any chances for Douglas?
I don't see how he plays if the weather is going to be like they're expecting to be. The poor footing, lower body injury, did not practice all week. I just don't see how that those variables all come together for him to play. I'm glad that they wanted to give him a shot, but we've seen time and time again that if it was contusion, which initially appeared it could be, maybe he's still dealing with pain and swelling. But there's also concern for an MCL injury because I posted up on Twitter earlier this week that the mechanism for injury was very similar to the TJ Watt injury, and that both got collided with by teammates and both at the knees. So looking back at the video, when I looked at it a little bit closer, there was concern for an MCL. If that's the case, I don't see how he plays. I even went back and looked at the research. There was 18 instances dating back to 2017 where guys were unable to practice all week and had a questionable or doubtful designation. Only one of those guys played during that time frame, and that was defensive tackle Vernon Butler in the AFC Championship game in 2020. He had a quad injury. So the stats aren't good for that. The knowledge of the injury, I don't see how he plays, but I love for him to prove me wrong.
Yeah, look, and that's why you have a guy like Dane Jackson, who's been a spot starter for you. He's played well last week against the Dolphins. I think they can weather the storm there and get Rasul Douglas potentially back next week if they, of course, take care of their business. We got a couple of players ruled out, Gabe Davis and Taylor Rapp. Let's start with Gabe Davis, knee injury. We saw him in street clothes on the sideline by the end of that Dolphins game. He's ruled out. I think the bigger question here is if the Bills get beyond this game, does he have a chance to be around for the divisional round matchup?
If it's a grade 1 PCL sprain, because we know that came out according to the national reports, he does have a very good shot at playing the following week should the Bills make it. This happened in the end zone. I think at the end of the first quarter, he fell down on the left knee. I originally thought PCL sprain, then got another look at him. Like, well, maybe he just hit the knee and it swelled up on him, but he did have a PCL sprain. This is what happens when you hit the knee on the turf. It's kind of a dashboard injury. So the tibia gets pushed backwards, sprains the PCL. And thankfully, it's not an injury that requires surgery, but this is unfortunately common, just how that mechanism falling on the knee like that. Other guys that suffered this injury include Harrison Phillips. He suffered this back in 2020, 2021. He missed about 3 weeks with this, though the demands for defensive tackle are far different from a wide receiver. But this also explains why when Gabe went to go out and play in the next series, he tried pivoting off his left leg, and his leg kind of went funny with him. I'm sure that the knee probably felt like it went hyperextended, and that's what the PCL is supposed to do. It's supposed to prevent the hyperextension of the knee from going out backwards. So they were smart to stop him, let him rest, and hopefully they can get through this game without him, and then he should be good to go next week. They want to make sure to strict up the quads, hamstrings, so there's not any issues with any instability moving forward.
Big spot for Trent Sherfield this week. The depth of the roster shined last week against Miami. They might need to do it again this week against Pittsburgh Steelers. Last player that's been ruled out, of course, Taylor Rapp, calf injury, didn't practice all week. He's ruled out, of course, coming off of his best game of the season. The back-to-back plays. It wasn't just a game-sealing interception. The play before that, he had a pass breakup on a deep shot to Tyreek Hill. So goes out there and makes the best 2 plays he's made all year. Now he's out this week. What's the thought for him, being able to potentially come back in the divisional round?
It's looking pretty good. At first, when he suffered or when he sustained when he secured the game-winning interception, it looked as though he landed on the ball, guys went knocked out of him. But then he came up and started hopping around a little bit. And the first time I looked at that, I was like, no big deal. And then you see a calf designation, so you start going back and looking. And right before he jumps and grabs the ball, he launches off that left calf. So his foot is in dorsiflexion where it is up. His body's way up over his foot. And so that's going to lead to the calf being overstretched. And as a result, he has the calf strain. So hopefully it's a grade 1 that he can play next week, but just having a week off, especially with that poor footing like we're expected to see, it would be insane for him to try and play through that there. So they had DeMar Hamlin for a reason, who is dealing with his own right shoulder injury, but he has 2 healthy legs and feet. He's going to at least run and still hit and play special teams. So it's smart that they're resting Rapp because they're looking long-term instead of, all hands on deck.
Do it again next week?
I would say so.
All right, let's do it again next week. Thanks as always, Dr. Kyle Trimble, for sharing your expertise and letting us know what's going on with these Buffalo Bills injuries. And yes, let's do it again next week.
Thank you, Joe, and go Bills.
I know we come to sports to escape some of the crazy realities of life, but can we just talk about being prepared for real life for just a second here? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade, and that's pretty scary. I couldn't imagine a more helpless feeling than if one of my loved ones needed some medication and a supply chain issue kept them from getting the medications that they needed. Well, thankfully, we'll be okay because of the Jase case. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics that treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among other. And look, this stuff can happen to any of us. So visit JaceMedical.com and complete your physician encounter. That will be reviewed then by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to JaceMedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. All right, folks, we're going to get to my prediction here in just a second. But first, I would love to invite you to join the Locked On Bills subtext community. Folks, we're having fun. We've been doing this all year. We're going to keep doing it all the way through the offseason. It's not going to stop. It's been so cool. Here's what you get. You get one-on-one text messaging with me. So if you ever want to talk Bills, have a question, shoot me a text message. I'm a text message away. I also send out my first reaction to all major Bills news. So this week when the Bills were navigating some of the injuries, I certainly sent out a text to the subtext subscribers letting them know my thoughts. You also get my in-game text. So whenever the Bills are playing the Steelers, pretty much after every single drive, I'll send out a text to let you know what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing, how I'm feeling. That'll all come through. And you get access to our Discord channel, which is a big community. We got over 500 Bills fans in there. We're talking Bills, Sabres, life, and you also get the film clips. So when I'm studying the All-22, I put tons of clips in there where I break down the plays. You can see the play, and I do voiceover analysis based on what I'm seeing, and that has been awesome. That's part of the Discord channel that you get with your subtext subscription. So check it out. Also, I know that subtext, unfortunately, is not available for an international audience, but I can still get you in the Discord. Would love for you to be part of that. It's the same deal, same rate as the subtext. So shoot me an email if you want to be part of the Discord, but you can't join the subtext. Shoot me an email at joemarino65@gmail.com. I'll get you the information to sign up for the Discord. So check it out. We're having fun. If you want to join, there's a link in today's show notes or any podcast show notes. You can check out the show notes, and you'll see a link to join the Locked On Bills subtext community. All right, time for my prediction. And just like last week, I'm not going to give you 5 different predictions. I'm going to give you a prediction for the game, and I'm going to tell you just kind of what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, the big factors for me in this contest. And, look, I love doing the 5 predictions, but the variability of a game like this involving the weather, where you're talking crazy winds, potentially a foot of snow during the game, cold, all that stuff. Like, it's hard for me to sit here and say, I think Josh Allen's going to complete 36 passes, right? That's just not practical. But what I can do is tell you how I feel and what I think is going to happen. First of all, we got to talk about the weather, right? I'm not a meteorologist, but I can look at these weather reports. I'm staying glued to it. Looks like it's going to be dicey, of course, if the game is still played at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Cold, big-time wind, big-time snow. Here's the deal, folks. The Buffalo Bills have been playing football outside in Western New York since 1960. You know what the weather is. You know these are the possibilities, and you aspire to host playoff games every single year in January. Folks, if part of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott's plan for building the Buffalo Bills didn't include winning home playoff games under these circumstances, well, then I don't know what to tell you. Shame on them. We can't be sitting here living in fear or concern that it's going to be wet, snowy, windy, and cold when we're the Buffalo Bills. I just cannot have that conversation. You're the Buffalo Bills. You play outside in Western New York. You've been doing it since 1960. It's got to be part of your recipe. It's got to be part of your team building plan. It's got to be part of the structure of what you want to be as a football team. You got to be prepared for these moments. And the Bills have been in these moments, and a lot of times it works out quite well. I know the Bengals playoff game last year looms large in everyone's heads. I'm not sure that the reason the Bills lost 27-10 was to the Bengals was because it snowed. It was cold. I don't think that's the leading cause. You look back at some of these other games, the Patriots playoff game was cold and scored 7 touchdowns in a row. The Bears game last year was frigid. They've had these games, right? This is part of the deal. So, like, yeah, weather. Here's where weather. I'm not sitting here diminishing the impact that weather is going to have in the game. All right, I totally understand that. But you're the Buffalo Bills. You are the Buffalo Bills. If you are not prepared to play in these elements, then you have failed when it comes to not only building your roster, but in terms of structurally how you are preparing your team throughout the course of a year for these moments. They have to be part of the equation. Now, where weather is true is to me, when there's this type of weather that could be as extreme as it is, it always favors the lesser team, right? Because it's a neutralizer of sorts. It levels things out. It introduces variance. And when that happens, it benefits the lesser team. And the lesser team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bills are 10-point favorites. I'm not saying anything revolutionary here. The lesser team's the Steelers. And so, yeah, perhaps this helps them. But, folks, you're the Buffalo Bills. You're not the Jacksonville Jaguars or Tampa Bay Bucks or Miami Dolphins, Dallas Cowboys. You're not the Los Angeles Chargers or the Los Angeles Rams. You're the Buffalo Bills. Figure it out. This has to be part of your equation. This game's going to be about physicality. The Steelers are a physical team. They're known for that. I think the Bills are a physical team too. Remember that Dallas game? You better replicate that. You better set the tone with physicality. You got to be the team that strains. This is going to be one of those games that's, yeah, X's and O's, they always matter, but it's going to be about which team can be the most resilient, the team that can do the fundamental parts of football, things that you kind of take for granted, snapping the ball, throwing it, catching it, blocking, contact, tackling, right? Which team is going to have the mental wherewithal to be able to sustain that type of physicality in strain for the longer period of time? Both teams have scratched and clawed to be here in this moment. The Steelers, 7-7. They win their last 3. They scratched and clawed to be here. The Bills, we know what they did, won their last 5. Both teams have done a lot to position themselves to be in this game. And you got to find more. You got to find more. This is going to be a lot about effort. Not sure scheme's going to be a big deal here. It's going to be about how you can be mentally tough and resilient to keep putting yourself back in between the white lines and stick your face in a fan and like it, to be candid with you. There's going to be some big dudes. You're going to have to collision them. You're going to have to be physical. That stuff's going to matter in this game. And that's part of what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, when they're vetting out these players and they're trying to figure out what they're about, this is what, that's part of when they say they're wired the right way, they have the right DNA. You're looking for guys that in this moment, they're going to embrace it and give you everything they got. And they're not going to turtle up and make excuses and be cold. It's a mindset thing, and both teams have to deal with it. I don't typically subscribe to like who wants it more, because I think both teams play hard to win, but I think that's going to be a factor in this game. And what are you going to do? There is no tomorrow. There's no tomorrow. You lose, it's over. And everything that you're doing as an organization, every team in the league, it's about winning the Super Bowl. And you got an opportunity to do that. You going to lay down? You can't. You got to scratch and claw and strain like you never have before. Because that's going to be a big factor in this type of a game. Number 3 that I want to get to here is I talked about the Steelers script. The Steelers didn't get here because they're a juggernaut of a football operation. They're not here because they have great quarterback play. They're 28th in the NFL in scoring this year. They're here because they subscribe to a certain formula of football that, just kind of works. It's boring, but it just kind of works. It gives you a chance. Why is Mike Tomlin never a losing record coach? Because he subscribes to a high ceiling, he subscribes to a high floor version of football. They run the ball. They play good defense. They're good in the trenches. They don't turn over the ball. They take it away. They don't commit penalties, and they invite the opposition to beat themselves. Don't fall into that. You're the more dynamic football team. You're at home. Speaking of being at home, the Buffalo Bills, in the history of the Buffalo Bills, are 14-4 all time at home. 4-1 under Sean McDermott in the playoffs at home. That's got to be a big advantage for you. And I know that Pittsburgh's they're a cold weather team too, right? But embrace this. Embrace this opportunity and what you have in front of you. This is what you want. You want home games in Western New York in January. And when that's the case, this weather is possible. And at the end of the day, it's still Mason Rudolph, a third-string quarterback with a 28 scoring offense without their best player in TJ Watt. Go win the game. Go win the game. This is how your season's going to end? Cannot happen. Go win this game, and I think the Bills are going to. And I know that I've kind of painted a pretty good picture of the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. That's intentional. That's intentional. I want to be honest with you. I want to be real about what these teams are and not sit here and just tell you, the Bills are 10-point favorites at home. They got Josh Allen. They're going to mollywop any team. They're going to beat the Steelers. I expect the Bills to win this game. I predict that the Bills do win this game, but let's not act like there's not a path here. Let's not act like there's not some challenging dynamics that Pittsburgh presents in terms of their style of play and their line of scrimmage and their run game and their not beating themselves mantra, and they don't turn over the ball, right? Don't fall into that crap. And boy, oh boy, if you get a lead in a game like this, man, oh man, got to manage the situation well. Put me down for a Bills win, and then we'll see what happens, right? If the Chiefs beat the Dolphins, the Bills play the Chiefs. That's it. End of discussion. If the Dolphins beat the Chiefs, the Bills play the winner of Browns and Texans. So we will know what team the Bills are facing before the game, because those games happen on Saturday. So the Bills are going to be at a rest disadvantage to their opponent, especially the games on Monday. If the game's on Monday, that opposition is going to have a couple of days up on the Bills, potentially on a short week. So we'll see how the NFL manages all of that. But anyways, put me down for a Bills win and getting ready for another game next week. That's the plan. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm predicting here. So we've done all we can here on the podcast. Now the only thing we need to happen is the Bills to go out there and win the damn game. All right, folks, this has been fun. Thanks for being here. We'll be live on Bleacher Report immediately after the game, so be sure to check that out. And as always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again after the game.